I never planned to attend my sister's wedding. Not because I hated her. Not because I was bitter. But because every major family event in my life had ended the same way. My achievements minimized, my boundaries ignored, and my sacrifices treated like community property. Still, when my grandmother called and said, "Come, just sit quietly. I need you there," I came. I arrived alone. No date, no announcement, no drama, just me. I'm 36. I own a penthouse overlooking the city skyline, floor-to-ceiling glass, private elevator. Every inch paid for by years of silent work, long nights, and decisions nobody in my family ever supported. They didn't know that part. To them, I was still the lucky one, the one things just worked out for. The ceremony was beautiful. My sister looked radiant. The guests laughed, clapped, toasted. Then came the reception. That's when my parents decided it was time. My mother tapped her glass, smiling too brightly. My father stood beside her, hand on her back, wearing that familiar expression, the one he used when he was about to speak for me. "We want to make a small announcement," my mother said. I felt my stomach tighten. She turned toward me, eyes glittering. "As you all know, our elder child has done very well for herself." Polite applause. "She owns a penthouse in the city," my father continued. "A big place, far too big for one person." Laughter rippled through the room. My sister smiled, confused but amused. My mother clasped her hands. "So we thought, what better wedding gift than family helping family?" The room quieted. "They're newlyweds," my father said. "They need space. Stability. A strong start." Then he looked directly at me. "So you'll be transferring the penthouse to your sister?" "Of course." Silence. Not shocked silence. Expectant silence. Like this was already decided. I didn't speak. I didn't even move. My sister's smile froze. "Wait. What?" My mother waved her hand. "Don't be shy. It's settled. You can downsize. Or rent somewhere small. You don't need all that." I finally stood. "I never agreed to this," I said calmly. My father frowned. "Don't embarrass us. Not today." My mother's voice sharpened. "You're being selfish." Whispers spread. I looked around the room. Faces I barely knew. People judging without context. Then my grandmother stood up. She was 92 years old, small, slightly bent, quiet for most of the evening. But when she stood, the room shifted. "Sit down," she said to my parents. They laughed nervously. "Ma, this doesn't concern," I said. "Sit down." They sat. She turned to the guests. "You are witnessing something they have done their whole lives." She looked at me, then back at them. When this child was 22, they asked her to quit her job and help raise her sister's children someday. My mother opened her mouth. My grandmother raised a finger. When she was 27, they asked her to co-sign a loan so her brother could find himself. My father shifted. When she bought her first apartment, they asked her to put it in the family's name. The room was silent. "She said no every time," my grandmother continued. "So they waited. They smiled. They praised her. They waited for a public moment." She turned to my sister. "This is not a gift," she said gently. "This is a taking." My sister's face drained of color. My grandmother reached into her purse and pulled out a folder. "I helped pay for that penthouse," she said. "Not them. Me." Gasps. I invested in her education, her first business, her growth, and I protected her assets legally. She looked straight at my parents. "You have no claim, no authority, no shame." My father stood. "You're turning everyone against us." My grandmother smiled coldly. "No, you did that yourself." Then she delivered the final blow. "The house you live in," she said, "is still in my name." The room exploded. "I was waiting," my grandmother said, "to see if you'd learned gratitude." She picked up her purse. "You have 30 days. She walked toward me, took my hand, and squeezed it. "Let's go home," she said. We left together. Behind us, my parents argued. My sister cried. The guests whispered. The penthouse remained mine. And for the first time in my life, the silence wasn't heavy. It was peaceful. The fallout didn't happen all at once. It happened in waves. The first wave came before my grandmother and I even reached the parking lot. My phone started vibrating in my hand. Missed calls, texts stacking on top of each other like accusations. "Mom, how could you let her humiliate us like that?" "Dad, come back inside. We can talk." "Aunt, this went too far. Think about the family." I turned the phone face down. My grandmother drove in silence, her hands steady on the wheel. When we reached the penthouse, she didn't ask for permission. She knew she was welcome. She'd helped build this life long before the walls existed. Inside, she sat on the sofa and exhaled slowly. "They thought the wedding would trap you," she said at last. I nodded. "They always wait for an audience." She looked at me sharply. "And you always think staying quiet will protect you." That one landed. The second wave came the next morning. My sister showed up. No makeup, no wedding glow, just swollen eyes and a voice that trembled when she spoke. "I didn't know," she said immediately. I swear I didn't. I believed her. That was the hardest part. "They told us it was already agreed," she continued. "They said you wanted to help but didn't like attention." I laughed once. Short. Humorless. She sat across from me, twisting her hands. "They promised us stability. Said the penthouse would be temporary, just until we got settled. Temporary things have a way of becoming permanent in this family," I said. She looked down. "I don't want it anymore." That surprised me. "They crossed a line," she said quietly. "With you, with Grandma, with everything." She left without asking for anything. No favors, no rescue. That was the last time I saw her as just my sister. The third wave was louder. Lawyers. My parents tried everything. Claims of verbal agreements, emotional appeals, threats masked as concern. None of it worked. My grandmother's paperwork was airtight. Every investment documented. Every boundary reinforced years in advance. When my father realized the house he lived in was truly at risk, he called me, not to apologize, to negotiate. "You don't need to involve lawyers," he said. "We're family," I replied calmly. "You should have remembered that before the wedding." He hung up. The fourth wave was silence. No calls, no messages, no holidays. And for the first time, I noticed something strange. I could breathe. Weeks later, my grandmother and I sat on the balcony, the city glowing beneath us. "You didn't ruin the wedding," she said. "They did." "I know," I replied, "but part of me still feels like I detonated something." She smiled softly. "Sometimes demolition is the only way to stop rot." I looked at her. "Why wait until then?" She met my eyes. "Because you needed to see it clearly, and they needed witnesses." Below us, the city moved on, indifferent, alive, endless. My phone buzzed one last time that night, a message from my mother. "You've changed." I typed back, then erased it. She was right. I had, and this time, I wasn't going to apologize for it. The quiet didn't last forever. It never does. 3 months later, the letter arrived. Not an email, not a call. A physical envelope, heavy cream paper, my father's handwriting, careful, deliberate, practiced. The kind he used when he wanted something but didn't want to sound like he was asking. Inside was an invitation, a family meeting. No apology, no acknowledgement of what happened. Just a time, a place, and a sentence at the bottom. "Your grandmother's presence is requested." That was the tell. They weren't calling me. They were calling power. I showed the letter to my grandmother. She read it once, then smiled in that quiet, dangerous way. "Oh," she said. "Now they're afraid." The meeting was set at my parents' house, the same one my grandmother technically owned. We arrived together. The house looked smaller than I remembered. Not physically, emotionally, like it had shrunk without its authority. My parents were already seated. My sister and her husband sat stiffly on the couch. A few relatives hovered near the walls, invited not to participate, but to witness. My mother stood when we entered. "Thank you for coming." My grandmother didn't sit. "Speak," she said. My father cleared his throat. "We've all had time to reflect." No one interrupted him. That made him nervous. "There were misunderstandings," he continued. "Emotions ran high. Mistakes were made, plural, vague. Safe." My grandmother tilted her head. "And?" My mother stepped in. "We just want things to go back to normal." There it was. Normal meant control. Normal meant access. Normal meant I gave, and they decided how much was enough. "I'll start," my grandmother said. She reached into her bag and placed a document on the table, a deed, updated. "I've transferred ownership of this house," she said calmly. My parents leaned forward. "To whom?" my father asked. She looked at me. To her. The room went silent in a way that felt physical, like pressure against the chest. My mother laughed weakly. "That's not funny." "It's done," my grandmother replied, effective immediately. My sister stood up. "Grandma, this does not concern you," she said gently but firmly. My father's voice rose. "You can't just—" "I can," she interrupted, "because I already did." My parents turned to me. For the first time in my life, they looked unsure of me. "You wouldn't," my mother said. "You wouldn't take our home." I spoke then. Calm, measured, unshaking. "I'm not taking it," I said. "I'm deciding what happens next." That broke something. Anger spilled out. Years of entitlement, resentment, and fear pouring into the open. After they finished, after the accusations and the guilt and the warnings about regret, I said one sentence. "You have 6 months." They stared at me. "To figure out your next chapter," I continued. "I won't rush you. I won't humiliate you. I won't ask for gratitude." I looked directly at my father. "But you will never speak for me again." I turned to my mother. "And you will never volunteer my life as a gift." They didn't argue. They couldn't. As we left, my sister followed us outside. "I'm sorry," she whispered. And this time it wasn't defensive. It was real. "I know," I said. She nodded. "I don't know who they are without control." My grandmother squeezed my hand. "Now they'll find out," she said. That night, standing alone in my penthouse, I realized something profound. Revenge hadn't silenced them. Clarity had, and the power they lost wasn't taken. It was simply returned to the person who earned it all along. 6 months passed faster than I expected, not because time moved quickly, but because for the first time, nothing was pulling at me from behind. No guilt-laced phone calls, no just checking in messages that really meant give us something. No sudden emergencies designed to test my loyalty. My parents went quiet. At first, I thought it was strategy, the calm before another attempt. But then I heard the truth from someone who still moved freely between worlds. My aunt. "They're lost," she told me over coffee. Not angry, not scheming, just confused. That word stayed with me. Confused. They had built their identities around authority, around being needed, obeyed, deferred to. And now, with no leverage left, they didn't know how to exist. The house became an issue around month 4. Maintenance requests came to me now. Bills, paperwork, decisions. I handled everything professionally. No speeches, no lectures, just signatures and silence. My father tried once. He showed up unannounced, stood in my penthouse doorway like a man who had rehearsed 1,000 speeches and forgotten all of them at once. "I never thought it would end like this," he said. I waited. He looked around. Really looked. Not at the view, but at the piece. "You don't look angry," he added. "I'm not," I replied. That unsettled him more than rage ever could. "I was afraid," he admitted, "that you'd leave us behind." I met his eyes. I didn't leave. I just stopped shrinking. He nodded slowly, like someone hearing a language too late in life. When the 6 months ended, they moved out quietly. No drama, no confrontation, just boxes, a rented truck, and the sound of a chapter closing without ceremony. I sold the house, not out of spite, out of finality. The proceeds went into a trust my grandmother helped me design. Education grants, business loans, quiet opportunities for people who reminded her of me at 22. She passed away the following spring, peacefully, in her sleep, with everything settled. At her memorial, my parents kept their distance, respectful, smaller. My sister hugged me longer than necessary. "I'm glad it's you," she whispered. She chose well. Later that night, alone on my balcony, city lights flickering like distant stars, I thought about the wedding. The demand, the silence, the moment everything changed. People love to call stories like mine revenge. But revenge burns hot and fast. This wasn't that. This was inheritance, not of property, but of spine. My grandmother didn't just protect what I owned. She taught me something far more dangerous to people who expect compliance. That love does not require surrender. That family is not entitlement. And that sometimes, the loudest power move is simply standing still, while everyone else realizes they can no longer move you. The story ended quietly, not with an argument, not with a confrontation, not even with forgiveness. It ended on an ordinary morning. Sunlight spilled across the penthouse floor as I poured coffee and watched the city wake up below. Traffic hummed, people rushed. Somewhere lives were colliding and unraveling just like mine once had. My phone buzzed. A single message, from my father. "We've settled in. You don't need to worry anymore. No blame, no request, no hidden hook." I stared at it for a long moment, then set the phone down without replying. Because for the first time, it truly wasn't my responsibility. That afternoon, I visited my grandmother's favorite park. Sat on the same bench where she used to feed birds and pretend she wasn't secretly observing everyone's character. I could almost hear her voice, never confuse silence with weakness. She hadn't raised her voice at the wedding. She hadn't insulted anyone. She hadn't begged, pleaded, or justified. She had simply revealed the truth. And the truth did what shouting never could. It ended the conversation. My parents lost something that day, but not a house. They lost access. My sister gained something too. Not a penthouse, but perspective. And I gained something I didn't know I was missing. Freedom without guilt. That night, back home, I stood at the glass wall overlooking the city I had built myself into. No borrowed power. No inherited leverage. No apologies required. Just quiet. And in that quiet, I finally understood my grandmother's revenge. She didn't destroy anyone. She didn't punish. She didn't humiliate. She simply made sure that the people who demanded everything from me would never again be able to demand anything at all. And that was the end.